All right, I want to welcome everybody, and hopefully we got some really good stuff for you today. So hopefully everybody's got had a good day so far. Welcome to the AutoElevate feature update webinar with a bunch of really cool new stuff that we are releasing and coming to you. So some of the things that we want to talk about today, I'm going to put this chat up over here in the corner and hopefully be able to kind of get through this presentation for you here. So we have the Q&A boxes open. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. The Q&A box is open, and we're going to be walking through all this. So ask your questions there. As soon as I jump out of the PowerPoint, I'll be able to see those. So I'll try to answer those as we go live today. I know we got the chat going as well, so we'll try to monitor both of those as best we can, and get all your questions answered while we're here. And then I'm gonna be going back and forth a little bit. So I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint to go through with everybody today, and then from there, we're going to actually jump into the application. So I'm going to show you where some of the new stuff is, how to use it, where to turn certain options on, what some of the new things are doing, and all that fun stuff. And then, we'll wrap up with some Q&A and some promotional stuff that we've got going on for everybody today. So hopefully this will be a very informative, very fun session. And let's get started. So to start with, I'll introduce myself. My name is Bill Morgan. I am the Director of Technical Sales Enablement here at CyberFOX. I've been doing IT for 23 some odd years now, something like that. Um, you get old, you forget. You know how that goes. And so some of the stuff that I used to do in previous lives, so I worked for Ecker Corporation, I worked at CA Technologies. I used to do a lot of government cleared work. I was in the military way back in the day, back in the early 90s. That gives you an idea where all that gray came from. And but yeah, it's safe to say, I worked at ConnectWise for almost a decade. So for those familiar with those folks, definitely a way to, I've been around the community for a really, really long time. All right, so let's start with all of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today. Yeah, there we go. All right, so this is the stuff we're going to be talking about today. Okay. Um, so I want to go over each and every one of these because there's a lot to unpack in everything. We sort of kind of been holding some stuff back for a little bit. Maybe some of you folks who are in our early adopter program or in the beta program where you were doing some testing with us, we appreciate you. Thank you so much if you were there. But this is what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to talk about the Agent 2.6 update. So if you weren't aware, we already pushed that out to everybody. So if you check in your consoles, if you happen to be following along today as we go through some of this stuff, you're going to see there's the new agent versions out there. It's 2.6.3, and then we did all the updates for you so that you folks didn't have to do it. A lot of people have been on multi-level, but again, it was only about 20% of the folks in for our partner base were on multi-level. So now everybody's gotten it. So when you go into the settings screen, it should look very different when you scroll down. It used to be just a single settings page and then the logo up, features you could change. Now it's very different, right? And so there's a lot of new stuff that's there. Single sign-on. And talk about that. I saw your question. To answer that, at the moment, no, we're not going to be expanding to SAML. We're using, I think SAML was probably eventually getting, it's going to go away. And I think a lot of people moving to, I think it's OAuth. So that's, and the first integration that we did was with Azure AD. All right. We've got some cool new mobile app security stuff, right? So some additional features that you can enable and turn on to add some additional layers to how the mobile app is going to behave. If you don't have the mobile app or you didn't know we had a mobile app, that's available in your respective app store, either the Google Play Store or the iOS, the Apple Play Store or Apple Store, right? So iTunes. Now, it's called AutoElevate Notify, and you just use your regular credentials in 2FA that you use to log into the portal. We'll get you into the mobile app. So if there, just in case there isn't anybody using it, or you didn't know it was out there, then you know it's there now. All right, event logging. So this is a nice little add-on. A lot of partners had asked for the ability to ingest these privilege events into a SIEM tool, or if we integrate it to a SIEM tool. And then this is a way for us to do that. So it's going to write to the Windows event logs. You can turn this option on or off. And then it's going to allow you guys to ingest those privilege events into a SIEM tool, or if you need to dig into the Windows event logs, and I'll show you where those are actually located. The customizable grid views. So a lot of this has actually been out for quite a bit, but we never really talked about it or never sent a communication that we added it. But I'm going to show you some really cool ways to customize the grid views and be able to save those. So if you weren't aware, you weren't sure, maybe you keep making your grid views over and over and over again. I'm going to show you how to do that and do some updates around what we've done around there and how you can save those and what that looks like. They're incredibly helpful. If you haven't played with those things yet, they're awesome. Like the grid views are the best way to view and review data. It's really, really great. So, and then the last one, the big one, all the fun stuff. Um, so the really cool one is the secure admin login. So that's something that we're going to talk about. It's a it's a really big deal, right? So it shores up a lot of different use cases and things that we need to do. So that's going to be pretty important. All right. Now let's go talk about the agent. Okay. So first and foremost, the foundation of all of this was Agent 2.6. So there was a lot of things that we really needed to do under the hood in order to make sure that all of the rest of the functionality that you see and you're going to see today could actually work. And as always with us, performance is important. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't impacting the performance in any way. We were adding a bunch of new stuff. We're adding a lot of things for the agent to do now because there's a lot of new customizations and multi-level that it could potentially be doing. And so we wanted to make sure that the agents were prepped and ready to be able to handle that. And we wanted to make sure that the performance of the system can handle that before we went ahead and rolled it all out. So there's a lot of updates, and you'll notice it's a big number update too. So for those that have actually noticed in the console before, the last agent was, I think, 2.4.1, I think was the last agent. And it hadn't been updated in a little bit. And so, because we're very protective, we want to make sure that we're very cautious because you guys all rely on that agent to work. And so, we're super, super careful about when we update that agent. But after many iterations, 2.6 is here. It's been pushed out to everybody's systems. You folks all have it now. And here's some of the things in that new agent update. So for one, it's going to automatically roll out, as I mentioned earlier. So really, nothing you got to do there. We did it for you, which is pretty cool. And that went really well, by the way, because obviously we can see all the backend statistics on that. So everything went really, really well. We have streamlined some of the check-in processes for performance and speed. So now there's a heartbeat style of check-in where it's just going to pulse in, check to see if there's any any changes that the agent needs to be aware of. And if not, it's basically just going to pulse in and say, hey, I'm here, I'm alive. And then it's going to leave again, doesn't need to do anything else. Whereas before, it used to download all of its settings and get everything every single time it checked in. So it was a huge enhancement to performance. Obviously, the event logging stuff, right? The admin login stuff, the SSO, so all that stuff had to be programmed into the agent as well. So now all those items are in there. For those that may have noticed when you were making rules and in your grid views, we enabled SHA-256 hashes as well. So we're basically bringing both of those in, and you can click either one of those and it'll take you to virus totals. So if you didn't know, anytime that you see the hash underlined, you can click the hash, it will take you out to virus totals, and it will validate that that hash is actually valid based on what the community has seen. Now, everybody that knows virus totals, it's a community-based sort of like big aggregation for all these file hashes and all the vendors kind of post out there. So most major files are out there, not everything. Like some homemade custom app may not be out there, but most of the big stuff that you're going to let people install or update is probably going to be there. So one of the the CLSID UNC elevations now, so things that are not direct files that are asking for elevation, but they are like a reference through the registry or something like that. So we've now got full support for CLSID and UNC elevation for doing elevations. And then one of the fun ones, and this is the one that I really like, is this one right here. We've added some additional customizable layers to the dialog boxes, right? So the two additions that we made were the pre-request and the credential input. So the pre-request is before they actually submit the request. So if there is no rule and you're going to submit a request, it used to pop up and say, and if you haven't customized it, it will still just pop up and say, we see you're trying to run with a semicolon. That was it. That's the whole message. Right. And so what we wanted was, and what we had asked for was the ability to customize that pre-request message to be able to put something, more usable and more functional in that particular point in the process. Right. So a lot of times for many of our partners, it was like, I need a way to communicate what's happening right here at this moment when they're asking to do this thing that requires elevation. Maybe this is the first time they're ever seeing it, or maybe I want to use it as a bit of a psychological sort of a barrier. Hey, maybe I could customize that and say something like, hey, you were going to submit this to the cybersecurity team for review live. You sure you want to do this? Right? And so people trying to install Baldur's Gate and World of Warcraft and Call of Duty might just kind of bail out at that moment and go, yeah, I don't think the cybersecurity team is going to approve this install. Right. So it's a great way to sort of head them off at the pass. And so now those are customizable. And the the credential input was another one. We've trained everybody, right? Don't put your password in anywhere. Like, be careful where you put your password. And so all of a sudden this dialog shows up on your computer and it's asking you to put your password in. And you're like, is this really legitimate? And so that's really cool. So we've actually given you the ability. So now you can put your logos in there and you can customize the text and explain how you want to do it. You can have that as a screenshot where you send it out to people and say, if you see this message, it's okay. You could put your stuff in there. So those, I think, were two really big updates. Like that was super important for the agent. The performance stuff was great. And, all that stuff's working really, really good now. All right. So yes, older agents will get updated. Yes, we are going to work on the dashboards being updated, and all agents should upgrade to 2.6. If not, you can go into the console and select the agents that haven't updated and tell them to update in the console. You guys can do that on your own, and those agents should update when they check in. If not, just contact us and support. We'll help you out. Okay, multi-level settings. So let's talk about that. So that's the first thing on our list. So Agent 2.6 is out there. That enables us to turn on multi-level settings for everybody. And in those multi-level settings, well, what is there? Well, there's a lot of stuff. So there's a few really great use cases here on what you can do with multi-level settings, right? So the first one is it adds dimension and customization to all of your customers, right? And locations, even technically down to the computer level. It allows you to take settings that were in the global arena and allows you to customize those at a company or a location or a computer level, right? So think of things like changing customer dialogue. So let's say that you have your custom dialogues, you've done all your customization in there. Initially, those were single level. It applied to the entire system, and you couldn't change that if somebody requested it. So now, if you have a customer that requests it, or you do have a co-managed client, and you wanted to customize the agent dialogue messages for that customer only, you could do that now. If you wanted to change timeouts, if you wanted to change timers, if you wanted to change almost any of the global settings, and there's even more, there's a bunch of new settings as well. You can now tailor those based on a company or a location or computer level, right? So there's lots of different combinations that you might want to do that you just didn't have the flexibility to do before, which is great because now you do. We added the option for SSO. So again, right now, single sign-on with Azure only. So if you're using Azure, you can set this up. It's an enterprise app. You've done a bunch of these before. It's honestly, it's no different than any other one that you've done and integrated with Azure. Another piece that we've added, so again, being able to go multi-level has allowed us to add some additional settings that were not available before. So now you could customize the technician mode timeout. So if I need to make that shorter or longer for a customer computer location, now you can do that, right? It used to be a system default, system-wide setting that you couldn't change. Now you can change it. And more importantly, you can override it and you can set it differently at different customer levels if you need to, which is fantastic. All right, so we also added the new mobile settings. And what we did here was a biometric update. And I'm gonna go into multi-level and the actual system and show you all these here in just a minute. So what we did was we essentially added additional biometric checks or the ability to use the PIN code for additional features that you might want to enable. So in other words, because you're logged into your app and that's the push notifications are coming through that way, you may want an additional layer of security. So if they go to approve something, they may have to do like their Face ID or their thumbprint, right? Or if they want to make a rule for something, you might want an additional layer there. Or if I want to go to technician mode, you might want to have that extra layer of that biometric, right? Just to make sure that it wasn't, somebody didn't pick up their phone, type in their PIN code and get in, right? You want to make sure it's really them. And so we're giving you the option now in the mobile settings to basically check that, right? And verify that before they can do, any of these options, and you get to pick and choose what they are. So we already talked about the custom dialogues and admin. Oh, by the way, this works for admin portals too. So if any of you folks are doing co-managed, right? So if any of you are doing co-managed, then this is great because if you want to tailor the portal so that it has your customers' information in there, you can do that. All right. So that way, if I want to make it their colors, I want to put their logo in when they log in, you can do that. And then when you log in, it's your colors and your logo. So it looks like your stuff. And then, of course, you still have the levels that you can use. And then, of course, you can customize the dialogues just for them now, too. So it's just really dialing in and tailoring, customizing the system for the needs of you and your customers. We have added a long requested feature, and I know the questions are going to show up after this one. Global remove admin. So if you're not familiar with the feature, there's a feature called remove admin, which basically removes administrator accounts out of the local admin group, right? And there's some, there's rules around what it can and what it can't do. But essentially, it used to be that, you'd have to go to each computer, you'd have to select all the systems you want to turn it on for, and then you would turn it on in the computer screen. Now you can turn that on in the settings. So I can say, look, I want to turn this on globally, or you can turn it on or off, again, because of multi-level, by client, by company, by location, however you want to do it. And that way, when new agents are joined to the system or to that particular company, they can automatically turn on remove admin and you won't have to remember to do that. Some of the other things, so that's just step one of a new feature that's been added. Obviously, there's other settings that we want to do that. Think of like UAC settings and potentially the agent mode settings, things like that, so that you could set at a higher level. And those are things that we're going to be working on. But the first step in all of that process was global remove admin, right? So that was a big one that everybody wanted. So now that's in there. And of course, we talked about event logging too. So let's jump out of this mess. All right. All right. So we're going to go, where are we at here? Where's where we are. Okay, so let's go over here first. Okay, so let's check some of the questions. I'm going to put them on the other screen. Let's see what we got. All right, so the install, if I install an older agent version on a computer, will it automatically get updated? You shouldn't, well, unless you have the older, actually, you won't be able to. The new agent's in the console, and then all of our scripts and everything that we do point to the current version, and the current version is 2630. So unless you've actually have the older AE setup file saved, the 241 agent, then you won't be able to install the older version. But no, we actually, you'd have to go in and do the update on that because we have to schedule updates as well. So once that schedule is run and we've set all the flags, if you install a brand new agent, you would have to update that agent if you manage to get the old one in. But ideally, what you're doing with that, Jonathan, is all of your scripts and things like that, the URL they should point to, the ending of that should say current version. And that way it will always download whatever the current version is. So you don't have to worry about accidentally installing an old agent. Even all the RMM scripts and PowerShell scripts we write, they all reference the download URL all references a URL that goes to what's called current version. All right, Greg, dashboard ever going to be interactive? Yeah, so we're talking about that. It's another performance thing we're evaluating. Having this dashboard right here, be able to update more frequently, and then be able to drill into these is definitely a big deal, and it's something we've asked for and talked about quite a bit. So as you can see, there's a huge update today, and these have been all rolled out to your systems. And so this is what Dev's been working on. So some of these other things you guys have been wanting, those are going to be soon next up on the list here soon. But yes, it's a great feature. I would love to see that as well. Do, 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 do. All right, so let me go into multi-level settings here. Let's go do that. So so now for those that want to follow along, right? So paint by numbers. Basically, go to your settings. If you're logged into your admin portal, everybody should be looking at and seeing this new. You won't see this one here, but you will see the general, you'll see the new agent. You can click that, will take you out to the change log so you can see all the new stuff that we've been adding, and you can see we've been making some steady updates and refinements to this, but the big push was to put everybody on 263, and that went out on 825. All right, so this is what multi-level settings looks like, and this is where you find all of what used to be on that single page is now all sort of sorted and scattered about throughout the multi-level settings menu. So the first thing to highlight and point out is now you see this grid view down here, and everything that was on the single page that used to be under this, the general settings here. So all the stuff that used to be like in a row right here and a row right there, those are now here, here, and here. Okay, so your admin portal settings under global are right here. And if you would like to change something, so like here's your agent dialog overrides. This is all your alert stuff that was you're used to seeing in that single page. Timers are changed and customizable now. So all of those pieces now you can totally tailor and customize by customer. So anything that you put at the global level, okay, applies to the entire system. Now, you can make changes to that. And that's what this does right here. So if you want to make something that you're changing for a particular client, it's sort of, I always joke, it's like follow the bouncing ball. So basically you click plus, and then select the level that this new setting is going to apply. So if I want to do this for a company, for example, and I'm going to do it for my company, and the setting I want to override is this setting. So if I wanted to change the agent dialog messages, I could do that. And there's your new pre-request message, right? And then down here is your credential input. So you may have seen those for a while now, but when you went to use them, they didn't work. Well, now they will. And this would allow me to override. So if I make changes to any of these, oh, and by the way, there's a little caveat with this. It doesn't, it's not what I would say mix mode. Like if it will it pull, if I don't customize, will it pull from global? And no. If you select this, you need to edit all of these. So as a shortcut for everybody, what I recommend, copy out all of your default customizations. And if you've done a bunch of HTML work in there and stuff like that, to copy those out, put them in like Notepad or OneDrive or OneNote or whatever, right? That way you can easily just copy and paste each one into the message override. And then usually what you're doing, most of everything usually stays the same. Usually what you might change is maybe the phone number for contact and probably the image source logo. So those become real easy to update then. If you haven't customized these, welcome to customizing the dialogues. And the really cool part is you can use HTML in here. So if you were to do something like this, you can see, right? And of course, if you close your tags off, yay, and then that all works, all right? So that's tailoring and that's customizing for a specific client. So again, this is when you only use this if you're going to override global. And then when you do override it, you can see down here. So we actually have overridden the timer in this case. So I wanted for this customer, we wanted the timer to be a little bit different. So we changed it. And then like this one down here, agent security, I've actually disabled removing admin for this particular client. All right, so just a way to customize on and change things you need to change on a customer by customer basis. Now, where to find some of those new settings? All right, so under agent security, there's two things to be aware of for the new secure admin login feature we're going to be talking about later. They're going to be here and here. All right, your SSO going to be right there. So you should see a new option that says single sign-on. Hit the pencil, enable, and it will take you to install an enterprise app, and then you just do that. Follow the instructions like you do on every other one, right? So we've all done those quite a bit. Your mobile app. So let's look at that one. So again, expand the mobile app right here. Let's go to the pencil, and there you go. So you have some new options and features that are in there. We'll talk about those a little more in a few minutes. But this is where you're going to find those. Your event logging is going to be in here. So if you want to turn your event logs on, all that stuff's going to be in the multi-level settings. And essentially, a lot of times, most of these are just a switch. Just flick them on, flick them off. And some of them you do like the SSO, you'll have to set up an enterprise app and do that. All right. So let's check some of the questions before we go back to the PowerPoint. All right. All right. Is there a plan to introduce an ability to pre-make rules before needing to wait for an event? At this moment, not just yet. We want to make sure we get the right hashes and the right certificate information, and all of that data, unfortunately, comes from UAC. So especially if you're doing like digital certificates and stuff like that, UAC has a certificate system and a check in it. And so all that data comes over from UAC, which is why it's not pre-populated as predefined rules. But it is something we're looking at, we're talking about. It's not on the immediate roadmap per se. Co-managed and multi-level. When will we get the ability to have only internal IT get admin requests? Only internal IT for multi-level. Yeah, so separating out your notifications. Yeah, not available yet on the dev list. And you can turn off the MSP notifications, but if you have co-managed, you're still going to get their notifications. Obviously, the co-managed person's only going to get their notifications, but you, of course, guys, you folks are still going to get everything. All right, so answered that one. All right. Where the global admin remove exclusions based on username specifically, or can we use SIDs? Username. So for remove admin, so this feature right here, the excluded admin from remove admins, those are going to be the display names. So just like this right here. Perfect. Is there a way to put a company in live mode by default for new devices so new agents that get deployed in the future will automatically be turned on to live mode? So Joe, the only way you can do that is to modify your script that you're using to deploy the agents with. So a lot of people will change once they get the initial rule base set, then generally speaking, they just switch the script over to live mode and everything goes out live after that. So usually audits really just for the initial settings when you go out. And then once you kind of build a basic rule set from that, then switch your script to it's just a flag in the script. If you're using any of our scripts, right, we've written most of them for the RMMs and PowerShell, then you just switch the flag from audit to live, and then everybody goes out in live. That's the way to do it today. It is a setting we're exploring for the console level. But it's on the to-do list on the roadmap. All right. Yeah, is there any option for tenant admins who don't want to give up their access, the ability to bypass and use their credentials? Yes, just put the agent in policy mode. Policy mode is rules only. It'll run the rules. If the rule exists, it'll run it. If not, it just brings up UAC and they could put credentials in the box. Ideally, not a good process because I don't want to give people admin credentials that they could potentially be compromised. So it's always best to do everything with AutoElevate. But if that's just not a possibility, then that's the way to do it. Put the agent in policy mode. That will do exactly what you're asking. No, there's no way to take any screenshots or videos. We have talked about it. That's definitely a little more complicated, but yeah, at this time, there's no ability to do that. All right, so looks like a lot of these are getting into some stuff that isn't related to necessarily the new stuff, but we'll have a little Q&A section at the end, so let's roll with it. All right, so I'm gonna answer more of those in just a few minutes. Let's get back to our stuff here, and we're gonna round this out. All right, so we're gonna go back over here. Let's talk about multi-level, and let's talk about mobile. All right, play from this side there. All right, cool. So here's the new mobile app settings that we've added to AutoElevate. And these are essentially, what we wanted to do was give you the option because you're logged into the mobile app. And so some people thought, well, what if somebody picks up my phone? What if they know my PIN code? And, that's a potential for and I don't know about you, I don't let anybody pick up my phone, but it's possible. And so all right, we need to potentially add some layers of security around the mobile app. And so we said, all right, let's do that. So what we did was in the settings right here. So if we go over there, right? So your mobile app settings right here, and then if you turn this on, then each of these options is selectable, and you can select if you want the additional authentication when they do these things. Do you want to let them use their PIN if that fallback of authentication fails? So if I picked up your phone and I knew your PIN and I could just use your PIN to get around it, then the extra authentication probably you don't really need to turn that on. But if you're truly hey, it's got to be your face, man, or your thumbprint, we need to know it's you, then obviously you want to turn this on. But it gives you control over the mobile app behavior when it comes to security. And this is a server level setting. So all the mobile apps for your instance are going to follow that. So that's where that's at. So that's the new mobile app stuff. And then you can choose how you want that to behave. Single sign-on. All right, so just want to clear up a few things about single sign-on. This one's pretty straightforward. SSOs with Azure. This is only for users of AutoElevate. It will also do mixed mode authentication. So if you're doing co-managed and you don't want to add somebody as a guest to your Azure tenant, then you can set them up as their own AutoElevate account. It will require 2FA just like it does today, but you could use mix mode, which would be I have my text authenticating with Azure. I have co-manage authenticating with just regular AE accounts. The email addresses do at least need to match to make sure that, that it's the right individual. And MFA is required, so you got to have that turned on. And it's only, like I said, for the technicians. So you can set up groups. There's 4 different levels of Technician 1, Technician 2, Technician 3, and Administrator, right? So just as a quick security reminder of the roles, Tech 1, approve, deny, one time only. Tech 2, make rules. Tech 3, edit rules. And 4, admin is admin. They can do everything in the system. So that's SSO. And again, that setting right over here, right? It's under its own little header, single sign-on. Just click the pencil, any of these, and then follow the instructions, and you'll be able to do that. So event logging. So let's talk about this. So there is a new custom event log that we have added to AutoElevate, okay? And it's under application and service logs, AutoElevate. There's a errors log, and then of course our events. So I'll show you those in a minute. You can see basically when UAC was invoked, you can see if what the outcomes, was it approved, was it denied, was the rule created, and they can be taken in by a SIEM for additional monitoring if you guys want to do that. So let's go over here. So where you turn that on, right? So Windows event logging. There it is right there. Under agent customizations and behaviors, Windows event logging, I have mine turned on. And so when I go over here to my Windows machine and I pull up my event logs, so you can see the Windows logs, application and services logs. There's an AutoElevate folder. There's your errors log, and there's your operational log. And then if we take a look at the actual log itself, you can kind of see this is I invoked PowerShell, and all of the data and information that you would normally see in the auto. It's quite robust, actually. All the data you would see in the console about an event is all recorded. And then, of course, the outcome. So this was actually done in this tech mode session, and it was under this technician who did it. So we're recording the individual. So in this case, I was in technician mode on this computer, and I ran PowerShell, and I authorized it. And so not only is that now in the console, but now it's also recorded into the Windows event log. So that's the new Windows event logging. All right. So we'll just show you this. All right. So grid views. So let's talk about that. All right. So now I want to go back over here for a minute. So if you were unaware, if you weren't sure how to use them, or you didn't know you could do this, or you are a grizzled veteran at grid views, all right? So the grid views are basically anywhere that you see a screen that looks like this, where you've got the headers across here. The computer screen's a good example because it always comes back to what we call the default grid view, which is company and location. But in the events, for example, most folks in the event screen are used to looking at all of your events like this. And so you can make, create, and save, even autosave your own grid views. Now, these are just for you. So however, it's a very individualized thing. So when you save these, they're not across all of the users or admins in AutoElevate. So those folks would have to make their own. But luckily, they're super simple to make, and they can make them any way they want to, in any way they want to see data and information. So it can be incredibly helpful. So the way you make a grid view is any header that you see here. So let's say that I want to organize all of my events by the vendor. Then I'll grab vendor, drag it and drop it, put it right up there. So now I can see all these by vendor. So I can see some of my Microsoft events and some Oracle stuff, and you name it, it's out there. Some other random stuff that's been happening, right? But what if I want to see it by, well, what programs, how many different programs are out there by each vendor? Well, then you might want to do this. Grab the name and drag that up there. And now if I look under there, I can see this was the program, and then these are all of the computers that are asking Elevation on behalf of that program. And this is the vendor that program belongs to. So it's a nice way. And then when you want to save it, you can click it, save grid view, and then name it, whatever you want. So there's my vendor name one right there. And then I can sort this any way I want. So another grid view that you might be interested in is a lot of times when we're making rules, we want to make rules knowing if there is a publisher certificate. And if so, a lot of times, because we like to use the thumbprints for the certificates to make those rules, it's a little more secure. In this scenario, what I might want to do is I want to know how many certificates, so I know how many rules I might potentially want to make. So that's another great view. And in this case, I would grab publisher thumbprint and I would drag that and put it right in the middle of those two guys right there. And now when we look at it, we can see, one, is it signed? Two, if it is, who is it? And then who's asking for it? And then I can decide, you know what? Yeah, I think I'd like to make a rule. And then you convert that over to a rule. So that's just another really helpful way to sort and reorganize the screens. By using technician mode, which is really great. You can come down here and you can also say, I want to see what all my technicians are doing. And so far, Dave today is the only one. He's been out there messing around with PowerShell. And then you just save those. Now, if you do make changes to it, if you want it to auto update, then on any of your views, you can flick the auto save switch and that will flick that on for you. All right, let's go back here. Last one, last new update. It's the big one. So, all right. So here's the big deal, right? So one of the things AutoElevate's always been able to do is to do elevation by a rule when somebody's logged in. So then you go, great. What happens when nobody's logged in and I need to log in? So now what we're doing here is we're adding a very important use case to what AutoElevate's capabilities are, and that is the ability to do secure admin login. So if I'm going in, think of like server access, right? I got 10 technicians, we got 200 servers out there, and all of those guys know the admin account and the password to log into those servers, right? And that's putting a lot of trust out there. But when it comes down to like what are the best practices for security, ideally, man, I don't want to give any of those guys accounts. And especially if we're rotating those passwords and I've got accounts, if I change accounts by customer and then it becomes a headache to manage. When we have staff turnover, all that stuff to deal with, right? Ideally, the best way, if I could do this, would be to remove those accounts so that they don't have them, they don't know what they are, and be able to securely and safely log into a computer. And then when I leave, make that account go away. And that, in a nutshell, secure admin login. And the way that you use it is it's going to show up on the home screen. Right? So when you're locked at a desktop, whether it's a server, a workstation, a laptop, whatever, when you're locked at the desktop and you need to get in, right? There's two ways to get in. If there's a user logged in, you need to know that user's credentials. A lot of times we don't. So chances are we're probably going to boot them out and log in using our admin account. And a lot of times this is where you folks would use your break the glass admin account, is in a scenario like this. Well, now that whole process can finally go away and you would simply select the admin login from the bottom on the user list, which I'm going to show you in a second, and then start the process. It's going to bring up that QR code. So if you're used to using technician mode and you bring the QR code up and you scan it, which is the way you absolutely 100% should use it 99.98% of the time, you scan that QR code, and what it does is it builds you an account that you've decided what that account is beforehand, but it builds you an account on demand. Logs you in, you don't need to know the password, so it'll auto log you into the system. And then you guys can do whatever you need to do. When you log out, if you wish, you can have it delete that account on the way on log out. And so it will create it and remove it and basically do a one-time use. All right. You can also have it demoted if you want. So one of the challenges, a lot of people, it's just, because we're technicians and we tend to be a little bit impatient, the present company included, right? So what ends up happening is a lot of times when we actually go to do this, the profile build time sometimes can be annoying. And so that's where you might decide how you want this to behave. So the first step to turning this on is under agent customization and behavior under admin login. So you're basically, in other words, we just made one here we called cyber admin, and it's essentially just going to build that account on demand. And then when I leave, I can select this and it will delete that account on the way out the door. So build this account, delete this account, build this account. It just repeats it over and over again for every time you want to do an admin login. Now, if you don't want the profile build time, just don't select that option. So that way it'll build the account, it'll leave it there, but when you're done and you log out, it will demote the account. So it'd just be a standard user account that's in the system there. And that way the next time you go to use it, you don't have to wait for the profile build time. But that's, again, this is for you folks, it's all a matter of preference. Now, another control that we put around that is authorizing who is allowed to do admin login. So this is where you would add authorize either the roles, like anybody who's an administrator can do admin login, or anybody who's a technician, or only Bob can do it, right? It's entirely up to you. But those are the two major settings for one, enabling the admin login. So we install the credential provider and do all that stuff. It's going to show up on the home screen and the lock screen when you log out, or when you connect to a server, whatever the case might be. And then you set the permissions, who's actually allowed to do this. And then actually, if you want to see the audit trail for that, so you may have noticed, and it's been there for a little bit now, but a lot of people haven't, I don't think have noticed it. But if you go to computers and you look next to the computer, you notice there's a new little eyeball icon. Well, if you click that, there's a new screen. And so now you can see all of the logins and who got authenticated, right? So these are all just us doing demos and attempting, but so like Dave got authenticated on this date and time, and he's the one who logged into it. Up above here, probably notice there's some other things. So if you want to dig a little deeper and see the data in a different format, you can expand that as well. So these are all, this is a whole brand new screen. You may not even noticed it was there. It's been there just for a little bit, but not too long. And so now that's available for you, so you can go look at that. All right. So that is the end of the presentation. Now we got a bunch of questions and we got about 9 minutes left. And so I want to try to get through as many of those questions as I can, but that concludes here's all of the new really cool, awesome stuff that's released. It's now in your system and you can go check it out. Hopefully some of you were following along so you can start to take advantage of the new features and start to leverage some of this new functionality and some of the new security and take advantage of some of the new agent features and things like that, and get more out of AutoElevate, right? Especially that admin login. That's it's a massive use case. It's massive for security. It allows you to start to potentially get rid of those break glass accounts, to really truly and truly take away admin from everybody, and then be able to track everybody's authorized access to every system everywhere. So fun stuff. All right. Oh, also, they wanted me to mention that for all of our partners that are running an end of the quarter promo, they wouldn't tell me what it is because I'm just a technical guy. So probably figured I'd mess it up. But if you have any questions, if you've been thinking about expanding AutoElevate, moving into different customers, especially now with the new admin login feature, if you want to leverage that, got to put AutoElevate on those machines. So would love to have you reach out and talk to your account manager. Then that would be either Tony, Shay, or Julie. Hopefully they've reached out to you as well, but you can always send a request in or give us a shout here at CyberFOX and we'll get you connected to your account manager. But I've been told there's some pretty awesome promos for the end of the quarter, which is just a few days away now. So if you're interested, we'd love to hear more from you. Thank you so much. All right, back to questions. We have a lot of those. Let's do it. Okay, so We have so many questions. Okay. All right. Um, okay, so Alex says we have had an issue with customers where users have local admin rights. They've been able to override the AutoElevate authentication by clicking yes very quickly. Yes, that is correct. They're administrators. That is typical UAC behavior. So when you are an administrator and you are logged in with that administrator account, which just as a matter of best practice, just to reiterate best practices security and to reiterate what Microsoft has been telling us for literally 30 years, nobody should be logged in as an administrator, right? Um, but if they are, yes, that is the behavior of UAC. When you're an administrator, the box says yes or no. And if you're super fast and you catch it before we intercept the UAC dialog, yes, you can go right around it. The goal is you should take away their admin rights. They won't be able to do that because when you take away admin, the UAC box goes from yes, no to username and login. And ideally, they won't be able to get past that. But that's the reason why you see yes or no. It's a fundamental UAC thing. Now, if you want to go nuts and find the policy um, that controls admin when UAC is presented, you can edit Windows security policy to prompt for authorization, even if you're an admin, and you can take away um, the yes, no, I believe, and make it put a credential box back up. And that would solve that problem. But by the security policy default configuration, unfortunately, if you're admin, it says yes, no. If you're not an admin, there's credentials. All right. Uh, Oh, plan to add a setting or switch for live mode after X amount of days. That's actually a pretty good idea. I don't know that we might, do a timer on it, but I think the first iteration of that potential feature and something we're absolutely talking about is to put that in a global setting like we did with add remove, um, or remove admin, I should say. And that would be the first iteration of that to at least put the setting at a global level so that you can set it the way that you want to. Yes, remove admin privilege only applies to active user. That is correct. Can we run a report of the agents and the local admin? We can tell you who's using admin at the time. That's a data view. So just go to computers, change up your grid view, change to right here, active user privilege like this. And you're going to list of all the people currently using admin and the people that are not logged in as admin. Currently, there isn't a data view for all the members of all the admin groups and all the systems, not a data view for that, but you can see using active user privilege, and that will tell you where you need to change it. You can hover over this, or you can go into here and you can see a list of all of those members for a particular machine. Usually it's pretty consistent across computers. It's either their admins, for example, or it's your break the glass admin that you guys installed. It's usually what they are. So once you know what one is, you know what the rest are. It wasn't developed to be a admin group cleanup tool. It was just designed to remove the active user administrator ability. So the next time they logged in, they don't have administrator anymore. Yeah, so Collier, it will remove remove admin will remove any user that it was in the local admin group. So see all these right here? Well, that's the built-in admin. We can't do anything with that. But like if I never log into CyberAdmin, it would never be able to remove it. It's not how it was designed. If I logged into CyberAdmin, it would remove it. If I had 10 users in the admin group and all of them have used this computer at one point in time or another, and they were all in the local admin group, then AutoElevate would remove all 10 of those accounts. If 5 of those accounts had logged in and 5 hadn't, then the 5 that had logged in, we would remove it. And the other 5 would still be there until they logged in to use the account, and then we would remove it. One for the end, Cyber Essentials case states that PAM tools like AutoElevate are not compliant because Nope, haven't seen that problem, Adam. Um, so the way UAC works is we're not elevating. I think this is a good one to kind of quickly explain Windows security and permissions. And I think some of the insurance companies and cyber essential companies like get a little confused here. We're not elevating the person to be an administrator on the machine as a blanket host, right? What we do is what's called a just-in-time elevation. So Windows UAC works on the premise of privilege is granted to what privilege was requested for. So if I grant a user elevation, then I am elevating that user to give the admin token to the process that requested elevation. That's how it actually works. So even though I've elevated that person, it's only because I had to elevate that person in context because admin might not work. So like if you're trying to do something where I installed a program using my credentials, elevated as admin in my profile, I'm the only person that can update that program. So elevating them as admin, you wouldn't be able to do it. So you'd have to go through the headache every time that application had to be updated of putting that person, elevating them to admin, updating the application, removing their admin, logging them in, logging them out. It's just an absolute nightmare. And so the user elevation piece is designed for things like, hey, it's installed in the user's profile, like programs like Revit. Um, or I have to elevate because I need to get to H key local machine current user. And if I elevate with the admin account, well, the current user is now admin, not the person I'm trying to help. So things like that. So user elevation has to be there. As far as what it elevates, it doesn't just give them carte blanche admin. When you're elevating and using UAC, UAC is a linear task. It is singular in focus. You can only elevate one process at a time. So we elevate that person, pass the admin token to that process as that person. There is some documentation on the website that you can check out as to how it works. Yeah, that should be on the website under the elevation types. No, you can only do one SSO registration. Sorry, one at a time. All right. Is it being looked at better events view reflect what events have been made into a rule? Yes. So that Alexander, that is something we're looking at. Is it looked at to see which events were rules and stuff like that? Yes. And when we do the dashboard update where you can drill down, then that one little dial in the bottom right corner will actually work a lot better and associate it. So this little one right here. So that's something we're working on as a development, as a matter of development. Uh, do, 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 do. The exclude admin does not include Azure or domain admin in AD, correct? Um, it the exclude admin, yeah. So if you're a domain admin, I can't do anything with that, right? Because it's owned by the domain. I can not take that out of the, I cannot kick it out of the admin group if that's what you mean. Um, But yeah, if you put the display name of the account in there, it should stay and not excluded. We can't remove any groups from the admin using remove admin. So like the domain admins group and stuff like that, like I can't touch those. All right. What if the server has 2FA for Duo? Then you will need to create a bypass for us so that so if you're using Duo for authentication, you'll need to bypass the admin account you create. So add that account to Duo. So just like a lot of you who are using Duo today on UAC, you would put a bypass for the tilde 0000 AE admin account and put it in bypass mode so that it doesn't prompt for 2FA on that account. You would do the same thing for admin login. Whatever admin account you use, create that account in Duo, put it in bypass so it doesn't prompt for 2FA on that account. All right. I know we're over. If you need to go get back to work, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I've got a couple more minutes, so if you've got some questions or you're still on and you want your questions answered, I can spend the next couple minutes answering those. But I don't want to keep everybody here, who needs to get going. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate hanging out. Thanks so much for being partners. We hope to chat with you real soon. All right, Tanner, does Secure Admin Login have any offline functionality? Not at this time. It is something we are looking at, though. All right, so Ty, I'm not sure what you were referring to. I might have missed something there. Does it go away? Mine went away. I had to recreate it. No, it shouldn't go away. Check with support at AutoElevate.com. If you think there's some funny behavior, we'll pull some logs for you. We'll figure it out. Um, Admin mode, yeah, if you have any issues or weird behaviors, just submit a ticket to support at AutoElevate.com and they will grab some logs and fix it up right away. Is the specific technician who logged into the account logged? Yes, so that is recorded. So for Christian, if you're still with us, that is recorded. So we know who the person is that did the admin login. Even though we're using a generic account, which is what's going to show up in the Windows event log under standard logins, we know in AutoElevate who the technician was that authorized admin, just like we know when they do technician mode elevations, we know who they are. Yeah, the same thing with any MFA tool. Um, you're going to need to create a bypass for the account that you're going to use. Otherwise, somebody's going to have to authorize it. Can admin login be used via RDP? Yes, RDP, Screen Connect, Control, Splash Top, anything, doesn't matter. I'm on right now, so I keep going there. But so if I go like right here and I say Bill Morgan lock, and down in the bottom left is admin login. Just click that. You click begin admin login, and then you get the QR code. And as soon as you scan that, if the account exists, you log in. If it doesn't, it builds it, and then you log in. It's as easy as that. It's like 1, 2, 3. It's a piece of cake. I was like paint by numbers. Yep. So we close that. I can go back to me now, and then I can just log in as I normally do. It's like that. Boom. All right. Are there plans to introduce public APIs? There is. Yeah, we're working on that. We're building SDK probably next year. Yeah, just there you go. Perfect timing, Steve. So that was admin login. You just, when you're at the lock screen, you can change the logo down in the corner. Your logo should show up down there if you've changed the logo in the control panel. And then you just click that, click start admin login, scan the code, you're in. That's all there is to it. Process, incredibly easy. Use cases, limitless. Any way to get MFA when logging in the AutoElevate admin portal? Is there a way to set MFA? Yeah, it's set up when you create the first time you logged in, your MFA was set for you. You have to. We don't allow anybody to log in without MFA. And so if you need your MFA reset, you can contact support and they'll do that in like 2 seconds. Super easy. I missed it, I think. Does this support 2012 R2? It will support the underlying requirement is .NET 4.7 and PowerShell 5. So as long as those two are there, then fundamentally you should be good. If you're trying to go back to Windows 95 days or ME, we can't help you. Any plan to give us object rate reports on tech actions, number of responses, time elapsed before response? A lot of that actually is, well, some of that's in there, the response, the when it was responded to, but not how long it sat there. But remember, if you want to track that level of detail, you might want to just have AutoElevate create a ticket and set the timer to be super short. Set it for like 5 seconds. And that way the timer will always expire. and a ticket will always be created, and then you can track everything through your PSA. Without SSO, is there a timer to log out? Yeah, not yet. Not yet. Any plans to add tags or more fields so a computer can be part of mixed groups? Um, Not something on the near horizon. So auto blocker is like the next major development thing that we're going to be working on. So that's going to be like the next thing that comes out. And then next year, a lot of these smaller, like really nice to have type things and GUI enhancements, things like that. That's some of the stuff we're going to be working on next year. But right now, the whole dev team is like super heads down on the new auto blocker feature that we're working on. You're gonna hear more about that in the coming weeks, months. Any way to deny bulk requests? Steve, I love you, man. I've asked for that for a while now, and I'm really hoping I can con them into doing it next year. Yeah, I know. I would like that as well. All right. If GPO is adding local admins, will AE keep removing them? Yep. It's going to be a battle. Whatever timing ends up winning in the end, that's what's going to end up there. So ideally, try not to create any conflicting policies like that. But yes, they will fight each other. They'll add it as soon as somebody logs into it, we'll remove it, right? If it hasn't been logged into, it'll create it and it'll just sit there until somebody logs into it, and then we'll delete it. Just in time with Server 2012, yep, should work as long as it's .NET 4.7 and PowerShell 5, I believe. All right, last three questions. I know we still got like a bunch of people here, so if you got anything else you want to slide in the last minute or so, go ahead and fire away. I'll try to answer everything I can. Great, thanks for Duo Bypass for admin. Oh yeah, no problem, man. Hopefully that works for you, David. It should be pretty easy. That's why we give you the ability to create the admin account and define what the name of that account is, so that things like MFA and stuff like that, you guys can easily get around those. So cool beans, man. No problem. Glad I could help. Integration with ServiceNow. We've talked about that, Matt. Definitely talked about that. I think we're finishing up a Halo integration, and I'd love to see a ServiceNow integration as well. And what about initiating the RDP session with admin login? No, it's on the login screen. There's no way to start it that way. Custom fonts. Okay, so that's a great question. So if you didn't know, in here, you can, I'm assuming you mean custom fonts for the end user dialogues, right? So yes, basically, if you want to change that, do that in the actual HTML. Yep. All right, cool. So just go to the HTML. So agent dialog overrides, go right here, go into the actual message and add it as a style. So you can change the font and define them in HTML, and you can make them literally whatever you want. So like you can see here, I changed the color in red. Here, oh, by the way, here's some streamlined HTML code for you. So basically what I like to do is I hate writing more code than I need to. Yes, there is, Alberto, a recording of this meeting, and we're going to post it out there. Probably put it out on our YouTube channel and on social. So a way that I like to do the HTML code for this, like you notice I'm using these header tags right here, because if I'm using the header tags, it automatically kind of bolds everything, and I want it to be bright and in their face. I do change the colors and put the logo in there because I want to capture their attention. And then I just progressively use the smaller and smaller tags to get the different sizes. And then at the end of each one of these, because you're closing the header tag off, I don't have to add like another close tag for the bolding if I want to bold it. I don't have to add break tags to get the spacing I want. I can make some real fast, efficient HTML code that's going to work on every system without any issues. and it's going to be easy for me to copy and paste it and not make mistakes when I have to update it and do other things with it. So, but yeah, you can use style tags. You could change the font if you want to. You can make it anything you want. Just smash it in there with some HTML and it'll preview it down below. So you know exactly what it's going to look like. So if I wanted to use like Sanskrit in this, I could. It's pretty cool. And then of course your messages are always previewed, right? So that you know exactly what it's going to do. Like here, I even added some extra graphics just because it was fun. All right. That takes care of all the questions. Again, thanks so much, everybody. I'm going to check the chat really quick just to see see if there's anything good in here. There we go. Okay, so let's go down. Wow, it's a bunch of these new ones. Oh yeah, the end user messages. Yeah, you're welcome to steal that. We don't care. Um, these are really good. I love this pre-request, man, because it really helps to like head them off at the pass. Hey, what happened? Oh, you need some admin rights. Oh, would you like to submit this to the cybersecurity team for review against your organization's security policy? And I'm installing Baldur's Gate. Well, that's probably going to get denied. I think I'm just going to ignore that for now. Right. So yeah, legit, you can make some really cool stuff. And I do recommend this is a big part of AutoElevate. It's the end user experience, right? It's communication and talking to them and telling them what's going on, what I need. And it stops people from, trying to do things you don't want them to do. And it stops them from potentially reaching out. Not everybody, of course, right? Nothing's 100%. But the idea here is to create this experience. Our messages are super generic, guys. So I recommend go in there, customize. It doesn't take long. Spend an hour, make it look pretty. And it'll just create just a better experience for the end user. Can we speak to UK authorities and tell them to stop being? Dude, I wish I could. I struggle even with some of the insurance companies who are like still doing archaic 2FA like requirement type stuff. And it's like we have a better way to do this than what your 2FA is doing. And with a little bit of social, 2FA is really easy to get around. And so it's like this is much more difficult. So yeah, we're in the process of working with authorities and entities and trying to be like, hey, we actually have a better, more secure way, and the way you guys are doing it's kind of silly. Um, a timer may cause a ton of tickets for rules not built yet. That is possible. Yes. Okay. So making rules, Brian, really quick. This is the last one. Then we're all gonna fly out of here, right? So if Brian, if you're still hanging out, still here, say yes in the messages. Um, So when you make rules, here's my suggestion. Go through your events list and make the rules, right? So what I do is I like organizing my rules a certain way, right? So what I do is this, and then when you go to make a rule, I sort like this. So I find the thing I need to make a rule. I think I need to make a rule for. I select one of those events, action, convert to rule. I build the rule the way that I want. When I'm done, it brings me right back to the screen. I uncheck this event, close this up, move to the next one, go here, action, convert to rule, and it's rinse and repeat until you run out of things that you're going to create rules for. After that, just flick it into live mode and you can make rules from the events because what's going to happen then is the things you don't have rules for that you missed are going to come in as events. And now you know exactly what you need to go make rules for. And it makes it real easy to do it. And will it be a little noisy in the beginning? A little bit. It depends on how big your organization, how many agents you got out there, but it might be a little noisy in the beginning. But eventually, as you get those rules hammered out for the things specific to your clients, it's going to get much, much, much quieter. And then you just use the request list instead of trying to filter your way through the events list. Just use the request list as this is what I missed. And it makes it so much easier to admin. Yes, you can copy and paste code to use as a base. Have been more specific. It's the approve rule made dialog. So if you get a live request and you make a rule from it, that's when that's going to come up. So there's different approvals and denials, real-time deny, real-time approve, deny rule made, deny approve rule made, and then there's already a rule already and you try to do it and it doesn't use the request system, that's when the other ones kick in. And if you click the little tell me more about this at the end, it will take you out there and show you. Cool. I know the rule dialog box is getting cut off. Your message is too long. Shorten your message up a little bit. You only got so much real estate depending on your screen resolution. So shorten your message up a little bit. Mine does it too. If I go too long, it'll cut off the bottom. You can drag the box up. Not ideal for the end user. So what you want to do is figure out based on the most common screen resolution, what's the best, how many lines or sentences should I use and how big should my graphics be? All right, everybody. I gotta fly. It's been awesome. Thanks so much. So many people showed up today. It was great seeing everybody on. Really appreciate all you guys being partners and all the questions you guys had today. We plan on doing more of these. So, we're gonna try to make this a little bit more frequent so you guys can come in here, ask questions. We can do some fun stuff. But otherwise, everybody have a great day. Really appreciate you.